Welcome to the Your City podcast, where we get to know our neighbors so that we can be good neighbors. I'm your host, Aaron Williams, and before we get started, we're going to say a thank you to our sponsor. Our sponsor for today's episode is Sweet Tings Cakes and Cookies. Sweet Tings is a certified home baker who specializes in decorated cakes and cookies for all occasions. She's super passionate about creating beautiful memories for her clients through her homemade sweets. Whether it's for a birthday party, wedding, baby shower, anniversary, or any holiday celebration, you can reach out to Sweet Tings for some delicious and professional-looking desserts that will be sure to please the crowd. You can find her on Facebook at Sweet Tings Cakes and Cookies, or give her a call at 205-223-4861. Today, I'm joined by Alex Wyatt, the City Council President, and Barry Smith, the City Councilor for Ward 4 in Homewood. We're going to talk to them about their roles at the City Council, how they got involved, and why they chose to pursue this type of leadership role. Alex, Barry, thank y'all so much for coming on to the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Yep. Thank you for having us.
So let's just start off with the City Council. What are some of the responsibilities? You're the president, so you have different responsibilities.
A little
right?
bit,
Okay.
but some overlap as well.
What are the responsibilities of the president and then I guess of a general city councilor?
So as president, I'm elected citywide, so I don't have a ward like the representatives do, where I'm just representing a portion of the city. And so my responsibilities tend to be a little bit broader in the sense of I conduct the meetings and oversee those. I overlook the agenda and make sure sort of the trains go on time with the city council and those things. And that frees up the ward reps to sort of interact with their ward more specifically, and vice versa. Them doing that allows me to deal with some of the more 30,000 foot stuff.
So you're the oil on the tracks.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. You know, we have, in my industry, we have a role like that. We call them the scrum leader, and they're the process master.
Okay.
So is that kind of accurate? You're the process master?
That's a good way to describe it.
Okay, cool. And then for just a general, I don't know if that's the right word, but
that's
for
right.
a city councilor, y'all are paired up in twos,
We
right?
do.
So how does that work?
Well, I think, first of all, Homewood has the largest city council of any city in the state of Alabama. So we do have 2 ward reps per ward, and that's not the norm. The norm is 1 rep per ward. So it becomes a real partnership with your fellow ward mate. We work together very closely, kind of cover the slack for each other. We all have different roles, different jobs. So my ward mate happens to be Jalete Nelms. So when she's busy, I'll cover things. When I'm busy, she covers things. But we work together a lot on issues. And, our goal is to work for the issues that our constituents think are important and represent our citizens in Ward 4 when we vote on issues at City Council.
So with having 2 ward members there, it just gives you a little bit more coverage over your wards. Are your wards, a lot of people have said that Homewood is a smaller city, so your wards must be smaller at the same time, right? So you guys are pretty dense, I would say, for a city council.
Yes.
Very.
Yes, very. And I will say, Jalete and I, Ward 4 is one of the larger wards in terms of the amount of people, and we're also very spread out. Most of the wards are one specific area. We happen to cover both sides of a major roadway. We cover a lot of areas. So we're one of the larger wards.
All 3 elementary schools.
All 3 elementary schools. Yeah. And then we've got, the high school in our ward. So it's a larger ward, and we have a lot of people. So it's probably good that we have 2 people, because we can kind of cover all the different areas. But
so other than, I guess, having 2 sets of schedules, really, like having 2 sets of schedules.
Yeah.
What are the other benefits of having 2 people per ward?
Alex was my ward mate before Jalete, before he took his role as president of the council. And it's always just nice to have somebody to bounce things off of, to talk things through with. I think, in a lot of cities where there are just 1 ward rep per ward, they talk to each other, obviously, but I think it's always nice to have kind of a second when you're going through something to kind of process things with. I always, valued Alex's input on issues, and Julie and I are the same way. It's always just nice to have somebody to kind of think things through with. It just is. It's always good to have somebody, that has your back.
Gotcha. With ward mates working together, I'm very curious about this concept, just because it's different. You know,
Sure.
Yeah,
it's a different idea and a different approach.
Yeah.
With ward mates working together, how do you guys fill out what your ward, your constituents, how do you guys reach out to them and get feedback from them, and how do y'all coordinate that between each other?
Well, I will say this, as we've mentioned, people in Homewood are very involved. They have opinions. They want to share those with you. So we don't really have to reach out to people, because mostly people will reach out to us and let us know if they have concerns or they have an opinion about something. They're very willing to share, and that can be by phone call, email, text. I mean, we're all pretty available. All of our information is on the website, so people can get to us, which is by design. I mean, you want people to be able to get in touch with you. So, I field a lot of phone calls, emails, pretty much every day, and as does Jaleel, as does Alex, as does everybody, because the people that are contacting us are generally people that we know. They're our neighbors, they're our friends. So they want to share with you what they think about something, or if they have a problem with something, or if they have an issue that they need addressed. So getting people to reach out is not an issue. They do. And honestly, I think sometimes people reach out to the person that either lives close to them, like, Jaleet's neighbors might reach out to her just because she's right there, and they have a relationship with her. But I mean, I get emails and calls from people not just in my ward. I get emails and calls from people in other wards who just happen to be my friends if they have an issue, and I can always direct them where they need to go. But it's never a problem getting people to let us know what they think.
People are coming after y'all.
Well, they do. They'll express their opinions, good or bad, and about or whatever their opinion is about a particular subject. People in Homewood aren't shy about that, and it's good to have an involved community like that. People are invested in the community, which creates passions about how the community should be, and that's a wonderful thing for a community to have. So they reach out to us directly a lot. We also have something that Barry actually worked on a lot, which is a redesign of our website, which also has a citizen portal where people can go in and, if they've got a concern about something, or they've seen something that they think the city should address, that goes into the system and is directed to the appropriate person to handle that. And that's been very successful because I get copied on all those. So, I mean, we generally get at least 2 or 3 a week. And lots of times it's just something like, hey, I saw this dumpster. Is it okay where it is? Or there's a crack in the sidewalk here, or, this light wasn't acting correctly. And those get to the appropriate people and get handled efficiently in that manner.
With that, do you guys encounter, let's say, a lot of disagreement between how, I guess, people have ideas? You're getting feedback from all over the city.
Sure.
How do you guys deal with disagreement when y'all have it?
Well, I tell people all the time that, much like any city councilor in any city, there are very few issues where all 30,000 people agree on exactly what should be happening, and disagreement may not even be the right term. A lot of it is just priority, right? Things about which issue should take more priority over another one. And so yes, there are people that certainly have an opinion about that and reach out, and I talk to all of them. The people that are supportive of an issue or against an issue, it doesn't really matter, because their opinion is valuable. What we do with that information is, whether you're talking about Barry or myself or any of the other counselors, we make a decision based on what's best for Homewood, and that oftentimes makes someone happy, and it makes someone not as happy.
Always.
And that's just the nature of governing. And so, all we can do is do what we feel like is best. And usually the people who might disagree with a decision that I've made or a vote that I've made, they're really good about talking to me and saying, I disagree with you, but I understand that there's a different point of view out there. I wish I could say that was everyone. It's not. But most people, particularly if I'm interacting with them directly, most people can come to some understanding of why I viewed the things the way that I did. But for the most part, I would say Homewood, despite the fact that we may have different priorities and opinions on things, for the most part, the vision of what Homewood should be is pretty consistent throughout the residents.
Yeah.
Not everybody,
okay.
But I think the overwhelming majority see sort of the goal the same way. The questions come about with how do you get to that goal?
Yeah.
And what do you prioritize to get to that goal? And that's where people view things differently.
So the what is pretty agreed upon, but the how is where the disagreement kind of can come in.
Correct.
Well, I think that's a good thing to have for a city. It sounds like you guys have a pretty, I would say, agreeing culture. Like the people who live here kind of all are pursuing similar goals and have aligned values. That seems like it provides smooth moments.
Well, I think anybody who lives in Homewood wants Homewood to do well because it benefits them, it benefits their family. So everybody has the goal of making Homewood the best that it can be. And like Alex said, it's just a matter of how we make that happen. And not everybody agrees with how that is going to happen. But I think generally, as long as we respect each other and know that at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, that's kind of the goal is just realizing that no matter how we get there, as long as we get there, that's the end result is what we want.
Yeah. And before we move on to, I guess, the next thing, I wanted to highlight something that you said. You said sometimes people will understand why a decision was made, even if it was made against them. And that right there, I think there's so much value in that, in feeling like I was heard, my opinion was processed, but there were other considerations that may have, overwrote my concerns. And being able to understand that is such a key ingredient of like being able to keep peace between a lot of people.
It is. It's an incredibly important part of the relationship between constituents and governing officials. And it doesn't really matter whether you're talking about city council or anything else. I think that's true. And as long as you have that, people understand, what's happening and understand the motivations behind decisions and how they're made. Where you run into trouble is with people that don't, that simply decide, you know what, they decided against me, and I hate them for it.
Yeah.
Or there was clearly some sort of ulterior motive that's under the table, and
you get into this lack of trust.
Exactly, and really, it's important for there to be trust going both ways between the governing officials and the residents, and particularly true in a local government like this. Like we've been talking about, we're 8 square miles. We're almost 30,000 people now, which is hard to believe, but we all run into each other. I mean, I can't go to the Piggly Wiggly without, people stopping me to ask questions, which is great. But we all know each other, and it shouldn't be hard to envision why your neighbors are doing what they're doing on city council and that they want to do what's best for the city, even if it's a little bit different path than what you might choose. And for the most part, that's what people do.
Yeah. How do you guys approach building that trust with your constituents? It's obviously such an important ingredient to the recipe, right? How do you guys approach making sure that your ward constituents, or I guess the city, at your level,
sure,
how do y'all build that trust?
Well, I think what Alex said about the citizen portal, I think that has been huge. I think prior to that being put into place, some people didn't feel like they had a way to express if they had a problem or if they had something they wanted to share
and
with
suddenly
somebody.
They have a voice now.
Yeah, now they have a way. Like you said, it's very important to have your voice heard, no matter what that voice is. So now that they know that there is a path to that's always available. I mean, 24 hours a day, you can get on the website and put your complaint in. So that has created something that makes it doable for people.
Yeah.
So that they can feel heard on whatever it might be.
So you've got this portal that people can go to. It's on the city website.
It is.
What are some other ways that constituents can have their voice heard?
So obviously, like Barry said, all of our contact information is on there, and
It's on the city website.
We get emails, texts, phone calls, you name it. You can see me at the Piggly Wiggly. You know, the ball fields, schools, you name it. People, and I mean this is a good thing, find us and talk to us about it. In addition to that, various issues that we have require public hearings.
Okay.
And so depending on the issue, not all issues require public hearings, but some do. And so with those public hearings, they can show up for a council meeting. We sit and listen to as many people as want to speak to an issue. Sometimes that's one, and sometimes it's maybe 100. It just depends on the issue. In addition to that, we have 2 council meetings a month. In the off weeks, we have committee meetings. At those committee meetings, we also, those are less formal. They're done in here, actually. And so people can show up to those and gather information about it, talk to us. Depending on the committee and the issue, there may be some public input at those meetings. But even if not, certainly there's some discussion. There can be discussion with us after the information is put out there. In addition, on the website, we have a number of sort of larger issues, information about those, as well as our agendas are published on the website so that people know what issues are coming up.
Gotcha. So that's a bunch of ways that people can get involved and
Absolutely.
be heard.
Yeah,
So,
it's hard not to be involved if you want to be, because all of our meetings are public. All of our meetings are
Yeah.
open, so anybody can come anytime.
all right.
Yeah.
Open invitation.
Yeah.
That's right.
Come on.
Come on down. Bring a friend.
That's right.
So wards are used for many different purposes to elect city councilors, but that's also, according to Justin, how the Board of Education is organized. It's, according to the librarians, it's also how the library board is organized. What are all the different ways that wards are used? Is that it, or are there more different ways that you guys use those types of separations?
Well, it is primarily, like you said, it's used to select your ward representatives, but it is used for all of our city boards and commissions. Almost all of our commissions do have ward representatives, but then a lot of our commissions also have at-large positions, so that there's people who aren't necessarily in a specific ward. But I think in order to have everybody represented and everybody's voice heard, it's always good to have whatever the commission may be, whether it's planning commission, school board, arts commission, beautification board, to have somebody from every ward represented so that every part of the city has a voice on all the commissions.
Yeah.
But that's primarily what the wards are used for.
Now, these positions, they're appointed by
The council.
the council? Okay, so
For the most part.
Or the mayor.
Or
There are a few
there's
that are
that have
appointed
mayor.
by the mayor.
Yeah.
okay, gotcha.
Yes.
So when you guys are appointing is that like a debate that y'all sit around a table and have, or is it just kind of like you have somebody in mind and you just talk to them about it and they say yes or no? How does the process of appointing someone to a ward-specific position?
Well, we open the positions up at council, and then people are asked to submit their letters of interest and resumes for whatever the position might be that they're interested in. We make those public. They're all on our website as well. And then people submit the restaurant. And I will say, when I first got on council in 2014, there wasn't near as many people who were wanting to serve on commissions. It was more of a go out and find somebody to want to participate. Now, almost every single position that we open up, it is not uncommon for us to have 2 or 3 applicants for each position, and we conduct interviews. We conduct interviews with the candidates, with everybody. We talk to everybody, and then we talk to each other and decide who we think is going to best serve in that position. So that's kind of how it works, and then we appoint them at council.
Yeah. What are you thinking about when you're thinking about, okay, this position, let's say like the beautification board, and you've got a ward-specific person that you have to appoint, right? Like, what's going on to make sure that you're finding somebody that you think is good for the role and good for the ward?
Well, I think most oftentimes people apply for the boards that they feel like suits their skill set. So somebody who has an expertise in landscape design would probably apply for something like the beautification board, whereas someone who has skills in arts might gravitate toward the arts commission. So you typically get people applying for boards that fit them, or that they have an interest in. And then some of the boards actually have kind of requirements for things that are necessary in order to apply. There's a couple of boards where like you need to have skills in engineering or architecture.
Okay, so there's some type of requirement,
Right.
qualification.
And that's part of the setup of that organization through the Constitution. So those things are kind of put in place outside of our control. But then people apply for things that they feel like they're interested in and they feel like they fit.
So with all of these different boards, what's the process, I guess, for, because these boards all have a certain set of responsibilities and a limited set of powers and how to enact those responsibilities. How do you guys balance what responsibilities they have and what boards should exist?
So some of it is done by state law. There are a number of these boards that are created by state law that we're required to have, or that state law has sort of assigned the responsibilities.
Okay.
So, for example, the best example I can think of is Planning Commission, Building and Zoning Adjustments, and City Council each have their own responsibilities, and then they have responsibilities that overlap. So, for example, the Planning Commission by state law is responsible for any subdivisions of a property. That never comes to us. But if there's a development plan required for something, then that would go to Planning Commission and then come to us. We've had issues where there has been a development going on, and one issue has to be solved solely by the Planning Commission. One issue has to be solely handled by the BZA, and then a third set of issues have to be handled by the City Council, even though it's one development. And I mean, if you were setting this up from an efficiency standpoint, you would go nuts, right?
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. Let's just all deal with it at once.
That's a little bit what I was thinking.
Yeah, but the way, so a lot of it is dictated by state law.
Yeah.
There are other boards that are created and handled by ordinance. Beautification board is a good example of that. We do, at least with those, we do try to, if a need is identified, that there is something that would help the city, make the city a better place, or help some issue with the city, and there's a group of people that would like to move forward with it, then we try to cater it towards that issue as much as we can. As these boards operate, oftentimes there are things that happen where we say, when it was created, we never thought of that, or the council before never thought of that, so let's incorporate that into it, or this is something that's distracting from the purpose of the board, so let's pull that out and give that to someone else.
Renegotiating.
Sure. Over time, you can the things that don't involve that aren't dictated by state law, you can move it around as you need to again allow those boards the freedom to achieve whatever goal they're set out to achieve.
So you're talking about state law. I assume there's also some county stuff that gets involved in some of this at all? Or?
Not really. So in Alabama, counties are just an arm of the state. So for the most part, the county is not dictating how things are done. We have dealings with the county, things where the state has said this is the county's responsibility versus the city's, and sometimes that overlaps, and we certainly deal with them on those issues.
Okay, gotcha. How do you guys maintain a relationship with the state and Homewood? If I guess the county is not as important, how do you guys maintain that relationship and make sure it's healthy?
Yeah, and so it kind of depends on the issue. Sometimes the county is more important, sometimes the state is more important. Okay. It just kind of depends on the issue and who's sort of responsible for that. We have worked hard to maintain a relationship with the county, with the state, with our surrounding cities. Jennifer Andrus is our liaison to our state representatives. She stays in good contact with them. We meet with them generally at least once a year to talk about the upcoming term and see what they see coming up and what we see coming up, and try to let them go into the session with that information. There's a group that also has created I'm going to get the name wrong, City Council Roundtable.
Yes, except I think they changed their name to something
Yeah,
else.
I can't remember what the new name is, but It's representatives of Homewood, Mountain Brook, Vestavia, Hoover, Birmingham.
I think they've got Midfield, Trussville. It's really gotten larger.
And they meet for a luncheon every so often, and then talk about issues that overlap with the cities. The mayors also have a mayor's association where they do the same thing.
Yeah. I remember the mayor of Gardendale telling me about that.
Yeah, and so it's it's a lot of and same thing with our county commissioners. There's sort of an open line of communication with them, going both ways, and so a lot of it is just developing good relationships and maintaining them, staying in contact, and thus far we've been very successful with that.
So it's not like there's an official process. It's more just kind of like, hey, that's a little bit part of your job is to network and make sure that you're doing a good job at that.
Absolutely. When they need something, they know they can contact us, and when we need something, we feel free to contact them.
Gotcha. Very cool. So we've talked a lot about the responsibilities and all sorts of stuff about the city council, and I kind of want to turn it a little bit more towards y'all individually. Alex, you're the president of the city council. Why did you want to run for that role? Because you had to be elected to that, right? So you had to campaign and all sorts of stuff. It's not just an easy choice to make.
It's not an easy choice to make. Yeah. I served, as Barry said, we were ward mates for, I guess, about 6 years before I did this. Mm-hmm. Barry was actually one of the people that appointed me to my spot on the Ward 4 position. There was an opening, and I applied for it.
Okay.
And I was interested in giving back to the city. That was the initial impulse was, I felt like Homewood had given me so much, and I felt I've always felt that public service is an important role in the city, in any city, county, state, country, and so I wanted to do that. After doing that for 6 years, the spot for president was open, and I wanted to sort of take on a new challenge, and was looked forward to the opportunity to do sort of the taskmaster stuff and work with not just my ward, but work with the entire council and provide it a certain direction and have a different kind of leadership role with the council.
Gotcha. And Barry, what made you want to become a city councilor?
Well, so before Alex was appointed, I was appointed to the council as well. Initially, mm-hmm. I have run for election twice since that time. Mm-hmm. But at the beginning, my friend Heather Reed, who used to serve on the city council as a Ward 4 representative, her ward mate was moving out of state and was resigning from her position. And so she contacted me to see if I would be willing to. We had worked together. Our kids were friends. We had worked together on multiple PTO projects. She knew that I was kind of one of those people who I like to do things. I like to be involved. I like to, I'm a big juggle all the balls kind of person. So she contacted me and asked me if it was something that I might be interested in. And I said, I'm willing to listen because I wasn't 100% sure what all that entailed. And at the time I had kids that were, in school and doing lots of different things. So I sat down and met with she and some other folks, and I thought it sounded like something I was really interested in doing. And like Alex, I grew up in a household. My dad was very involved in politics, and I had always kind of thought that public service was something that I would do. I just wasn't really sure how that looked. Mm-hmm. I never in a million years thought that I would run for a public office. I could not have told you that. If you'd told me that when I was 22 years old, I would have laughed in your face. But I talked to her. I liked the idea. They appointed me in 2014. And I served out the end of the other person's term for 2 years. And in that time, Heather moved out of Homewood and Alex was appointed. So initially we were both appointed.
And so you appointed Alex?
Well, yes.
Okay.
I was on the council that appointed Alex. Yes.
Oh, okay. So did you nominate him?
Well, yes, I did. I did. We all know each other. So you know people out there who are smart and involved and qualified, and those are the kind of people that you want on the council. So obviously, I reached out to Alex and I was like, hey, this is happening. And so lucky us, because now he gets to do the job of council president. But then, so in 2016, ran for election, that was my first time. I used to say run for re-election. I wasn't re-elected. I was running for election because it was the first time, and then ran again in 2020.
Okay. So is appointment, you were appointed initially, you were appointed initially. Is that typically how people end up on the council, or is it like a spot opens up and people run for it or something? How does it work?
Usually it's an election. Yeah. It's fairly rare that a position opens up. It's not unheard of, but it is rare that a position opens up midterm. Usually what happens is people run for it, and either there's an open seat that people run for, or there's a contested seat with an incumbent, and it's happened both ways.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I think now I'm pretty sure that Alex and I are the only two on the council currently.
John Harden.
Oh, that's right, John Harden. Yes. So there's three of us who ended up on the council via appointment, although John now has run for election as well.
Yeah.
So, but it's not a very common thing.
What does a campaign for a seat in Homewood, what does that look like?
A lot of yard signs.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
A lot of yard signs.
Starts with a lot of yard signs, and then, involves, quite frankly, just talking with your neighbors. Whether it is, I should let Barry answer this because
I've done a lot of it.
She's had to do more than I have, just because, as luck would have it, for me, bad luck would have it for Barry. She's actually been opposed, and I've gone through elections where I haven't been opposed. So she's had to do this more than I have, but at least on her own behalf. And so, but it involves a lot of reaching out to your neighbors. Yeah. Whether it's having get-togethers, lots of people put on get-togethers to meet a candidate. Lots of people do door-to-door things. Lots of people, and a lot of people to begin with. And so, some of it is just getting the word out. But yes, starts with a lot of yard signs and ends with a lot of conversations.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And honestly, that's exactly it. I mean, I have, in my first election, because I was running for election for the first time, I'm probably knocked on just about every door in Ward 4.
Okay.
It is a lot of walking, and it was hot, so hot that first time. So there's a lot of walking around and knocking on people's doors. It was different in 2020.
And you said that you had a bigger ward than other people.
Yeah, it's a large ward. So there's a lot of walking, and there's a lot of hills. So that's also a fun thing. But in 2020, it was very different, because in 2020, the world was shut down. And people weren't super excited about you knocking on their door. So it was a very different situation. There was a lot of trying to figure out safe and socially distanced ways of talking to people. There was a lot of knocking on people's doors and then walking way far back so that they wouldn't feel uncomfortable. But it really, I think, because people were at home and everything was kind of different, people were very willing to listen. And I think also people were just kind of bored. So it was kind of nice to see somebody different than the same people that they were seeing all day long.
I think another product of that period of time was that a lot more people started paying attention to political decisions, because suddenly everyone was being directly affected by those types of things.
Right. So it was different. Campaigning, like I said, I'd never imagined that I would do it. So it always shocks me when I think, oh my gosh, I've done this twice now. It is not my personal favorite thing. Some people are born for that. That's where they feel the energy. And I love meeting my neighbors. It is one of the best things about campaigning is getting to talk to people. But it's hard too. It's hard. But it's what you have to do, because you want people to know what you think is important, and hopefully let them know that your job is to represent what they think as well, and that you're open to them, and that they can come to you if they have something.
Yeah, well, you have to establish that first line of trust.
Right.
Exactly. And so how are you going to get somebody to check your box on the ballot if they don't even know who you are?
Right.
They don't trust you. So that's that first opportunity to get that in there.
Exactly.
Alex, you have done some work. I don't know what clerking is, but you clerked with the Alabama Supreme Court.
Sure.
What is clerking? And then what was that experience like?
So clerking is, at least in that context, is most appellate judges in the state, as well as federal judges.
Appellate judge?
Yeah. So like Court of Civil Appeals, Court of Criminal Appeals, and Alabama Supreme Court. Okay. So courts where an appeal goes after a trial or after a decision in the trial court. All of those judges, as well as most federal judges, will hire clerks in the first year out of law school. And so I was lucky enough to be hired by Justice Gorman Houston at the Alabama Supreme Court. And so I spent a year, which is normally what you do. You spend about a year doing it. And you basically, depending on what kind of judge you're working for, you work with that judge for a year on whatever's happening. Okay. So with the clerkship at the Alabama Supreme Court, what you do is you work on appeals that come to the court. You do a ton of researching. You do an endless amount of writing. You work with the judge and with the other clerks and the other judges. You see oral arguments. You do all kinds of stuff. It's really. I can remember some of the other clerks that were there with me. We talked about that it's such an invaluable experience. It's a shame that not every attorney gets to do that going through, because it really does. Law school doesn't teach you a whole lot of law. It teaches you sort of how to think, and teaches you how to analyze stuff, and gives you sort of a basic foundation.
Here's how to read a map. Here's a compass. Go.
And so. The great thing about clerkship is that it's sort of an in-between. So you're not really fully practicing law yet, but you're learning an immense amount about the law and about how things work that then help you feed into a law firm or a company or whatever you're going to do afterwards, and just builds from there.
Okay. So with this, it sounds like this was an excellent preparation for your process ownership that you have today, because it sounds like that's a kind of what you were doing, is enabling the judge's process and stuff like that.
Yeah. So if I was doing it right, what I was doing was making the judge's job easier. Yeah. And so obviously decisions were his, and how a case went was certainly his decision. Or at least his vote on how a case went was his decision. And what I would do is help him with that by providing the research and letting him know this is what the case law says, this is what the statutes say, and then helping him craft what was actually going to go out.
So it sounds like there is an opportunity, though, to have some influence over things, because, the order of things, if you have a stack of papers, the one on top, regardless of how they're organized, sure, alphabetical or whatever, the one on top is going to have more importance to whoever's looking at it, right? So there is some type of opportunity to, and probably the judge is relying on you to provide priority.
Absolutely,
to him, right?
It is. So the way they're set up is there's usually a staff attorney that's an attorney that's been around for a while, and then two clerks, and the judge is relying on all three of us to help, to do the things. If he were forced to go and read all the case law in every case that came before, he'd never be able to get his job done. Yeah. So he relied on me to, provide him with accurate information regarding the case law, provide him with maybe even, my opinion about what was going on with the case. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, he would make the decision, of course, and as he should. But yes, he was relying on me to provide him with information and make his job easier in working through an appeal that was before him.
Gotcha. And Barry, before you were a city councilor, you did writing. You did some writing as well.
I still do.
Oh, you still do?
I still do, yeah.
Okay, so you were writing for some magazines, and you told me about one of them. What was it called? Baby Palooza?
Baby Palooza.
Baby Palooza.
Yes.
What was that experience like, and how is that sort of translated into your role today of writing?
So I have an undergraduate degree in communications and a master's degree in journalism. And so my career is editing, writing. That's what I do for a living. Mm-hmm. And I still do that today. I'm a copy editor for a national outdoor magazine. I work with a friend. We produce the city magazine for the city of Alabaster. I write for a lot of other publications and edit for a lot of other publications, freelance all the time. I will say, because I have that in my career, I have sort of taken that role on for the council as well. I'm sort of the go-to advertising person. Mm-hmm. So anytime we are doing an advertisement for the city, I usually write it or do it, get it produced. And then also for the World Games, with that coming up, we really wanted to promote the city out there in the world to people who might be coming to Homewood or to Birmingham for the World Games, trying to get Homewood a little bit of that piece of that pie. So we actually have produced some videos promoting Homewood so that we can put those out into social media in places where they might draw attention from people who might be coming here through the Chamber of Commerce. So I work with the Chamber of Commerce a lot. I've produced things with them. I have that skill set, so when it's needed, I will step into that role for the council.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's been very valuable to the city, just in terms of like, hey, we have somebody who knows how to make things look good. Let's go.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's really funny because we always, anytime we do an ad, and we do an ad every year in the Chamber magazine, yes, I know. That's, free labor. Barry is going to take care of that. Yeah, so,
what got you interested in writing? What made you pursue that? Because that's what you went to college for.
Yes. No, I just always wanted to be, from the time I was literally 5 years old, I used to dress up in my mom's clothes and pretend I was a news reporter. And that was my original goal. My original goal was I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. And as time went on, I just, when I was in graduate school, I really enjoyed magazines. I liked the process of magazines. I liked telling a longer story. And so I went into magazines, and my very first job out of school was at a trade publication in Atlanta. And I've just kind of gone from there, and generally almost always I've done some newspaper work, but for the most part, I do magazines, and I just enjoy that.
All right.
I just enjoy it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you obviously went to go study law, Alex.
I did.
Okay. What made you want to pursue law? Is it lawfare? Is that what y'all call it? What do y'all call it?
Legal practice.
Legal practice.
So I had some parents of friends of mine that were attorneys, and they knew I was interested, and so during college they got me some exposure over summers and things like that, and let me work with them. And what I enjoyed about it was that you had a client who was relying on you to help them, and so it was. In a sense, it wasn't in a sense. You were providing a service to people, and so it was something that was important to them in their life, and I liked helping them with that. And so that was my initial sort of interest in getting into law. Now, my parents will tell you that I argued since I was 2 years old with them, and was always meant to be a lawyer. But I don't know that was actually what did it. But I enjoyed the interaction with people.
Yeah. So for you, it was kind of like, this is a difficult topic for a lot of people to approach, and this is an opportunity that I can help simplify that for people.
It's someone described. So I do litigation, and people often describe litigators as someone who sort of parachutes into a problem, learns all about that problem very quickly, so that they can help with it, and then once the case is over, leaves it, and may or may not ever see that same problem again. And so that's what I've liked is whether it's whether I'm learning something about medicine or engineering or whatever, I enjoy sort of learning about that problem and trying to figure out a solution. And in addition to being a litigator, I'm also a mediator where I don't represent a party and I try to get parties to work towards a resolution. I really enjoyed doing that because it helps bring people together.
Well, it's probably also very important as a city councilor. You're over the whole city, so you have considerations that expand broader than Barry, but both of y'all are going to have businesses of all kinds of industries that have those unique problems, and having that context, having that ability to like, okay, I know how that industry kind of operates. It's going to help you craft solutions and provide that context to your fellow counselors. So it's a very valuable thing to have, is understanding multiple dimensions of stuff.
And I will say, those of us who are serving as the ward reps so appreciate that about Alex, because he always brings a very calm and methodical approach to things. it sort of makes it more of a process and less, you don't get so emotional and upset about things. You just kind of work through it logically. And he does that, I think, probably as a mediator quite well. And he brings that to us in council. And it really does help work through issues that might be a little thorny or, might be a little bit heated or have, different opinions on the side.
Okay.
He brings a very cool head and a kind of logical approach to things, which is super helpful.
I can imagine that because, there are, like you're saying, there are areas where emotions can get in the way of things. And you really want to be crafting policy off of logic and sound reasoning and not emotional response, because that can create a lot of,
you do. You want
frustration.
You don't want emotion to overtake the rational thought and process and analysis of what goes on. And Barry's given me a whole lot of credit. I got 10 people who are really pretty good at doing this themselves. So I get to take a lot of credit for it. But they really do. Everyone recognizes that it is important to go through the process, take all the information, and analyze it in a reasonable and logical way.
Yeah.
It's issues that come before us are important to someone. That's why they're coming to us.
Yeah.
And so it is easy if you're not careful to let that emotion just take it over. And once that happens, it's hard to figure out what the best decision is for the city.
Yeah. I can see that. Now, Barry, you mentioned that you still work writing for magazines, and Alex, I assume you have a day job doing something that's not full time.
As an attorney, yeah.
Okay, so you're working, and that provides an opportunity for potential conflict of interest with your position in the city. How does the city council prevent conflict of interest from influencing decisions that would affect the city?
Well, there's not really a way to prevent it because we all live here, and my husband happens to be an attorney also. So there's always going to be things that come up. We have people on the council who are involved in real estate. We have people who are in other businesses. So there's chances for there to be issues that arise where there might be a conflict. And when that happens, you abstain from a vote. Because if there's something that I'm voting on that I feel like I have a personal investment in that could affect my personal life, it really wouldn't be fair for me to weigh my personal involvement into an issue.
Yeah.
So we can all, anybody who feels like that is an issue will abstain from a vote that they feel like they could be, unduly influenced.
I think that's important because, even if you're fully capable of compartmentalizing and separating your bias from your decisions, right? Even if you're capable of that, anyone that is aware of that potential conflict of interest is going to see that and be like, yeah, but can we trust that they were able to do that?
Exactly.
And so that's, removing yourself from it.
Yes.
That's
and it happens.
Good
we have issues that come up. I've had to abstain from a vote. We've had multiple people who've had to abstain from votes from various reasons. And it generally has to do with some conflict in terms of what they do for a living, or the company that they work for, or a company that's a competitor of who they work for. Exactly. So that's always the way that you withdraw yourself from something where there might be a conflict. You just simply abstain from voting on it.
Now, this idea of voting, I forgot to ask earlier, do you have a vote on the council?
So
are you like a tiebreaker or something?
No, all 11 of us have a vote.
Okay.
So all 11 of us have a vote. The mayor has a veto power. We can override his veto, but quite frankly,
I've never seen it happen.
Never seen that happen in our terms. So, but yes, all 11 of us have a vote.
Okay, gotcha. I was curious about that. If you're like, the vice president in the Senate chamber or whatever.
No, I get a vote on everything.
Okay, gotcha. Very
so
cool.
There would never be a tie because there's 11 of us.
Yeah. So our theme for this season is how to be a good neighbor. So what does being a good neighbor mean to you guys? How can people be better neighbors?
Well, in my view, I think that being a good neighbor means respecting people's opinions, even if they're different from yours. That's not to say I think everybody has to have the same opinion, but I feel like if somebody has a different opinion from you, respect that. Doesn't mean you have to jump in and agree with everything they say, but I think good neighbors appreciate each other, respect each other, know that even if they have differences, at the end of the day, the goal is that they want to live in a great city that has all the things that they're looking for. And the way to get there is for people to work toward that together. So I think, when people work together for a common goal, sometimes having different opinions doesn't necessarily matter because they all want the same thing. So at the end of the day, as long as you get there, but I think respect is huge. And I think it's something that really is important and that people need to understand that we're not always going to agree with each other, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. But you have to be kind to someone in that disagreement and respectful.
It's important to understand that disagreement isn't like an attack on you or distrust.
It's not a personal situation. Yeah. People just have different opinions, but respecting the fact that people have different opinions and treating each other with respect, even in those difficult moments.
So I would agree. Respect is the key for me as well. Disagreement is built into our system. It was part of what the Founding Fathers created. It was part of what they did to create what they created. It's always going to be a part of, it's going to be a part of our governance. And it's going to be a part of just our relationships, right? It's even at a much more basic level. I mean, I don't know anyone whose household doesn't disagree on stuff at times. That's
Preach it.
I mean, it's part of who we are, and what's important about it is to recognize and value the fact that someone has a different opinion.
Yeah.
If they have a different opinion, they have it for a reason, and they're just as entitled to their opinion as you are to yours. Mm-hmm. What's important is that you can have conversations as neighbors, whether this is over, a tree in your yard, this on the property line, or whether it's about politics or children or anything. What makes good neighbors to me is that you care about each other enough to recognize how great that person is. Separate from whatever opinions they might have that are the same or different than yours.
Okay, so
you need to learn to you got to value that person as a person.
An appreciation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so respect and appreciation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I think that's awesome. And you said disagreement is built into our system, and that just made me think. It's like, would you want to live in a system where nobody ever disagreed and everybody's just unanimously moving in the same direction? How would you ever know that it was the right direction?
The only time that's ever happened is when a government says you have to agree with me.
Yeah.
And because otherwise there's no way to do it.
Yeah.
We're all individuals. We all come at things with our own perspectives, our own backgrounds, our own experiences, and that's going to make us view things differently.
Yeah.
And it's going to make us come to different conclusions. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And that's quite frankly one thing that makes Homewood such a great place in my mind is we do have a diversified population of different backgrounds, perceptions, beliefs, political orientations, you name it. We've got a little bit of everything here, and that's one of the things that makes Homewood such a great place.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful answer. Now, this one probably is going to have more weight from you guys, and then my interview with the mayor upcoming. What do you think Homewood, the city of Homewood, should focus on next?
I think we are in a constant state of trying to balance our city developing in a way that's healthy, both residentially and commercially, so that we have a great balance of residential, business, so that our community is moving in a positive direction. Because obviously, if you're staying stagnant, you're not going to stay around.
If you're standing still, the people are going to run. Everyone else is going to run past you.
Right. So you have to have a healthy balance of wanting to move forward, but wanting to move forward in a way that is healthy and responsible and is good for the people that live here. So development for the sake of development is never what we're interested in, but development that we feel like is good for our city, that will generate good income for the city, because obviously we have to worry about that because we're in charge of approving the budgets, but then also good for our citizens, doing good things that are going to help the people that live here.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, a big one.
So focusing on meaningful growth.
Meaningful growth, yeah, and growth, thoughtful growth.
Okay.
And then another thing, and this is more of a like in the weeds situation, but we're currently dealing with it, is our stormwater system. And I know that sounds very unsexy, but we have a very, very old stormwater system that was never meant to deal with the amount of people and homes and water that is now involved. So trying to get that to a place where it is in good shape is a big part of what we're doing now and will continue to do until I'm off the council, I'm sure.
All right.
And beyond.
And beyond, yeah.
So I would agree with everything Barry said. With everything that we do, we try to find this balance of maintaining what makes the character of Homewood unique, and at the same time moving Homewood forward in a positive direction. Where you find that line can be difficult at times, but we do try to move things in a positive direction, allow the city to grow and develop in the way that it has been and will continue, while at the same time not losing what makes Homewood Homewood. With regard to more specific issues, stormwater is clearly one. I mean, last term we built all the things that needed to be built. We gave money to the schools to add on to the schools. We added on to the parks. We built a new police station.
Development out the wazoo.
Yeah, we did all the and all were needed. Yes. All were desperately needed. They were needed for some time, even before we did them. So they were important to get those things done. And now, as Barry said, now we're sort of looking at more infrastructure things, which aren't as recognizable to people, but are no less important. And stormwater is the biggest one of those. Yeah. That's going to be a project that's going to take years and years and years to do, but we've got a plan for how we're going to do it, and it will outlive both of us, or our times on council at least. And but we will get that process in place. The second thing is, and we're literally just starting this as of last Monday, is looking at the possibility of a city manager and what that would change in terms of the form of government. That's
so
something
like a new role?
Yeah. So currently we don't have one. A lot of cities do, particularly our neighboring cities do. As Homewood has grown and become bigger, as the population has grown, the economy has grown, everything's gotten more complex. And so we felt like it was time to start looking at that, at the idea of having a full-time city administrator of some kind. There are a number of different options we can go. The mayor's already done some research. He presented that to us on Monday night. Now he's handing that over to us for us to do some research along with some citizens of the community that are going to be involved. That process is going to take a year or two to get through because we want to make sure we're doing it right and we're taking into consideration everything that we need to. Okay. But that's something that's big on the horizon in terms of how the city government operates. Could be changed quite dramatically depending on what we find with that study.
I don't know what a city manager is. What type of responsibilities would that person have?
So it really sort of depends. We could probably sit here and talk for about a week on the different kinds, but in general,
all right.
what it is sort of a full-time executive paid position that would be, so for example, our mayor, just like us, he's part-time. Okay. And most of the cities around here have part-time mayors because we're smaller cities. And so what lots of those cities have done is they've hired some form of a city manager or city administrator that is a full-time paid position where someone that has the training and experience. Lots of them have training in finance. Some of them have masters in public administration, and they're trained for that purpose to handle everything. And basically, what they do is, again, depending on the form and how you set it up, they're sort of the central hub for the city. So the department heads would work with that person in some way, again, depending on how the setup works. That person would work with the mayor, would work with the city council, again, under one of various models.
Okay. So they're just kind of like this ever-present point of contact and organizing.
Correct.
Okay. Interesting. I didn't know about this. So, well, before we close out, is there anything else that y'all wanted to add before we end the show?
I just, appreciate you letting us come on and talk about all of these things. I think, all of us who serve on council and as president and as mayor, we all have a similar goal in that we all want Homewood to be as good as it can be. It's always foremost on our minds. And I know sometimes people don't really get that, or they might kind of think, I'm not sure I understand where they're going with this. But we all have the same goal, and that's to make Homewood as good as it can possibly be, as great as it can possibly be. And we all are serving because we love the city.
Yeah, I would agree. Sometimes it's easy to, whether it's not just city officials, but any elected official, it's easy to sort of dismiss them as, well, they believe something different than me, and therefore they're doing something other than what's in the best interest of the city. I can tell you I've served with a number of city councilors at this point over how many ever years it's been. I haven't always agreed with all those people, but I don't know a single one who wasn't doing what they felt was best for the city and in the city's best interest. Again, we may disagree on how to get there. We may even disagree on what the goal is in some ways. But everyone that has served Homewood in my time has done so because they love the city and they want to make it the best that they possibly can.
Gotcha.
And quite frankly, I think that the councils that I've worked with have been very successful in doing that. Homewood has improved, not just because, and I don't, the council shouldn't take credit for all of that. Yeah. That's only part of one component of what makes the city great. The residents are doing it. Certainly the schools are doing it. The department heads are doing it. The businesses are doing it. Everything is working towards the same goal, which is making Homewood great. And I'm very proud of what we've done on council, because I think it has, Homewood has made incredible strides over a very short period of time, and I think it will continue to do so. There's a reason that it's very popular to live here and very popular to work here. Our secret is out, and so that's a wonderful thing. It's wonderful for property values. It's wonderful for convenience. It's wonderful for all these things. It also creates issues like stormwater and things like that we have to deal with. But we'll happily deal with those issues.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have.
They are good problems to have. And right now, that's where we are with Homewood. We've got good problems to have because we've got good people, and we'll keep moving forward with those and continue to make Homewood better.
I think that's a wonderful way to close it out. Thank you guys so much for, y'all are saying thank you to me. No, thank you for sitting down with me and giving me an opportunity to learn more and everything. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Your City podcast, and I hope you enjoyed our talk today with Alex and Barry. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us out by supporting the show and donating on PayPal by using the link in the description to help us keep making the show and improving it. There's more that we want to do with this idea, and we would appreciate any support in helping us achieve our goal of creating better communities, not just for Homewood, but for other cities as well. Thank you again for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.